10 million different ways to get to any particular position in life, probably aside from nursing or doctors where you actually have to have a very, very skilled craft. But, so I'm originally from California. I went to UC Santa Barbara. I really, at the time, actually thought I wanted to also go into medicine. I wanted to be a physical therapist. I did sports all my life, saw many, many injuries, and I was gonna go save the world. Love sports medicine and my physical therapist, but that was not for me. I failed organic chemistry, and I was done. And through college, going to college, I actually learned that, again, science and medicine was not my jam. And so it was more the humanities and writing. I could craft a great story. I could write really well. So then I decided to go into international relations. And I was gonna go save the world in a different way. Did a semester in Washington, DC, loved that, went to Japan, taught English after college, loved that, still had no idea what I wanted to do. But my first job out of high school was actually as a PBX operator at a hotel near my hometown. I was just getting a job before I go to college, and I'm in college, I'm working at the front desk and all sorts of different positions at a hotel. Again, never gonna be my career intention whatsoever, just doing a job, get me through college. And then I tried some different other things outside of college that were more like office, more professionally type careers, and I decided that that actually was not my jam, and I really, really missed being in hospitality. I missed talking to people, I missed how it's different every day, and then the more I learned about what actually goes on in a hotel, then I realized, wow, I actually can make a career out of hospitality. And actually, what is a hotel, especially the full service luxury hotels that I have worked in, they're like mini cities. So if I was into marketing, we have a whole marketing person. Guess what? You need a whole accounting department to run a hotel. We have an IT person. We have, aside from finance, engineering, many different crafts. Every single profession, again, aside from like the skilled nursing things, if you are into those things, you can do those all in hospitality. It is one big little city in and of itself in those things. And people don't really think about that. They think that hospitality is cooking, cleaning, and working at the front desk. And hospitality is so much more than that. I get finance people that say the reason why they stay in hospitality is because you can do finance, again, essentially anywhere, but how fun is it to be in hospitality? It is. I can tell you that as much fun as it seems like we have, it is a lot of fun. So why not work in an industry that you like, but still practicing kind of the same whatever subject matter that you really enjoy. So that's just a little bit about me, but I wanted to turn it over to Jeanette and have her tell you about her journey as well.
Hello, thank you all for coming. Really appreciate your time and attendance today. So my story is a little bit wacky in that I'm from New Orleans. I grew up here. Ended up going to Loyola, and while I was going to Loyola full time during the day, I was working full time as well. And I was working for, I was in Al Copeland's corporate headquarters. Imagine that one. But in any event, so that was very interesting. But I learned that what we would do is basically with the training department, we would go out and we would open up new restaurants. And I really enjoyed that. But at that time, I didn't know what I really wanted to do. I really didn't know what direction I wanted to go into. And I had to kind of look in the mirror and determine what's really important to me. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. But I really had to dig deep to see, okay, really, what's going to wake me up in the morning? And what I determined was helping others made me feel really, really good. And it made it feel like it's almost not work when you're helping someone else to whatever degree that you can. You know, I'm not an MA, a nurse, or a doctor, but I help those that do help me, so that makes me feel really good. But I'll say that I worked in the training department for a bit, and then my first HR leadership role was in manufacturing. So picture me in a hard hat, steel toe boots. Yeah, did that for a number of years. Then I got into healthcare staffing. Worked for a national organization that was owned by an equity firm out of New York. Did that for a few years. And in the financial crash of 2019, they filed bankruptcy. which was probably one of the hardest lessons that I ever learned, because with the type of bankruptcy that they filed, they weren't required to pay any of the employees nationally, and they froze the 401k, and so I was left with 2 toddlers, a mortgage, and panic stricken. So I will tell you what I did to try to find a job, and the importance of making connections in the community. This is a really small community in New Orleans, it really, really is. And the importance of making connections, because as I'm on the hunt to try to find a job, right? I get a call from just randomly, out of nowhere. A connection that I had made was at a baby shower, and Ochsner needed an HR director, and they got me in for my first interview. 5 interviews later, I got on as an HR director in a regional role at Ochsner. So I was there in a regional role, and then I was shifted to assistant role in the leadership, the Ochsner Leadership Institute. In any event, healthcare is my jam. Serving the community is my jam. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
All right, okay, great. So let's start here. Let's get that out on the table, right? It is work to find work, right? It is tough. I would say the top 2 things I hate most in life: finding a job and moving. Those are like 2 worst things in the world for me. Because it's hard, you know? You have to figure out, again, starting from scratch of like where we are right now, just where, even if you have no idea what you want to do, right? Where do I even start? So that's what we're going to talk about today. What I want to do actually is have you all do a little bit of a self-reflection right now. I'm going to give you some time. I'm going to pose some questions for you to kind of think about what it is that you want, because that's the step 1. Just like Jeanette was talking about, thinking really about what it is that you want out of, no matter what position that you are applying for, what some of these things, right? So what kind of job are you looking for generally, right? Is it going to be a job that you're like sitting at a desk? Is it going to be talking to people? Is it going to be, with a lot of team members, or maybe I'm the only one that is in charge of myself? Maybe I'm working remote. You know, there's so many different things of thinking about what different industries. Where? This sounds like a very basic, silly question, but where is this job located? Okay, if you cannot get to the job that you are looking for, then you're already going to set your own self up for failure. So this is very, very important, especially in the New Orleans area. As we know, public transportation is a huge challenge. I don't care what industry you're in, this is a challenge, right? This is a barrier for a lot of people. So do you have reliable transportation to be able to get you to where you need to go? Maybe ideally you can walk there, perhaps, ride your bike, thinking about all those things. Or again, maybe you would prefer remote, so just kind of expanding your brain. COVID is, I guess, one of the pros and cons, I guess, of COVID is the remote workforce now. There's so many more remote jobs, so maybe not even in Louisiana. You could be working for a company that is based out of New York, but they're allowing you to work from home, and then transportation doesn't even become a barrier. But if you're someone like me, I could not be sitting in my house all day. So again, that goes back to that first question, and what am I looking for, and kind of what that work environment looks like. I feed off of being able to brainstorm with other people in person. So being remote full-time would not necessarily be great for me, but could be something that's very good for you. When am I expected to work? Hours and days of the week. So depending on what industry you're in, that could flex very, very much. So kind of also, again, builds on top of the question prior to that. You know, where is it located? If I am not able to, let's say the bus is not running at 5 in the morning in any sort of frequency, and I have to be at my job at 5, you know, maybe that is a consideration, and things that you also have to think about as you're also interviewing, which is, again, we're kind of going to interweave a lot of the themes that we'll talk about, that they'll talk about in future classes here, but just something, again, to think about as you're, even before you even apply. Am I looking for part-time work? Am I looking for full-time work? Am I looking for on-call work? There's so many different options. If I want to be a contract worker, do I want to be a full-time worker? There's again, start really thinking about this and self-reflecting on what you are looking And then why? This is a big one too, you know, like why would I take this job? You know, at the end of the day, we are at our jobs the majority of our life. So you want to make sure that whatever it is that you're picking, it's something that you think you are going to enjoy. You're not going to necessarily know that till you start your first day, your first 30, 60, 90 days while you're there, but you can have some sort of inkling in terms of these companies. You know, look at those mission statements. Look at, you know, the people on the executive boards. Do they look like you? Do they have the same values as you? Those things are important as you look at that. Look at the benefits. Most company websites have a lot of the benefits posted. Is that something that's really important? Maybe medical benefits is like top priority. Not all companies, you know, offer that, nor are two companies the same. So, you know, this is really getting into adult life now, right? Thinking about the benefits that certain companies offer, but that is something that is really important to think about. So, again, before you even start your job search, kind of have a little bit of inner reflection because, again, every company is not the same in terms of, you know, even the same positions you might be applying for. So, do a little research on that. And just know that there is and this is what we're going to start to talk about, there's more than one way to find a job, right? There's a million different ways, and we're going to talk about some of those ways to do that. So just for us, I'm just going to talk about hospitality very quickly, and then I'll flip it over to Jeanette. Within hospitality, there's a couple of ways I would think that we get the most amount of volume through Indeed and H Careers. It's almost, I would say, especially Indeed can be very overwhelming. So, especially in the New Orleans area, there's like hundreds of hotels, and they all say are posting a front desk job, for example. So again, that's where you have to do your research a little bit more. But the good thing about those sites is that, let's say you are not sure and you are looking for a job, it's a really centralized way to be able to look for a job kind of like all in one place and apply very quickly. We're going to talk about LinkedIn a little bit more later. I think I'm going to hold my thought on that. But if you have not created a LinkedIn profile, that should be number one on your list as well. Not only is it a good opportunity for you to engage with other people, but it's a really good opportunity for people to engage with you. So, and we'll talk about that.
Let me add one thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Just make sure that if you have a LinkedIn profile, that it matches your resume. Does that make sense? Because a lot of times you'll see the resume and then you go to LinkedIn just to kind of check it out and you're like, what? And it's like, doesn't match. So, just a helpful hint there. Match.
Yeah, Liza, go ahead.
I had another thing I wanted to share. On Indeed, one of the really cool things about Indeed is that you can plug in keywords. Like I had forever an Indeed search for like all jobs over $50,000 in New Orleans, and it'll send you daily updates. So you can save your search, and it keeps on feeding you stuff, so you can look every day and keep it up. So, you know, for I'm trying to think for you, like a business manager or something, you could just set business manager New Orleans, 20-mile radius and every single day.
No, further.
Or further. Wherever you want to go, for sure.
Yeah, and then further to that, LinkedIn also has a job search function. If you did not know that, if you're not on LinkedIn as well, and similar, you can set up job alerts for things. So I kind of do it on the opposite end, like our comp sets the Four Seasons. So actually, my job alert is set for the Four Seasons, so I can see I get alerted every time the Four Seasons has a job opening. But that is the type of thing that you can let the technology work for you, so that you don't even have to do it. So you plug it all in, and then it'll just spit out job recommendations and job postings. Especially if it is a company that you'd love to be at, you just can't figure out a way in, or maybe you're always a little bit too late after they post it. This will send you that alert right away as soon as somebody posts something, a new job posting. So, anything else that you'll? And then just something to also keep in mind, at least on the hospitality front. I don't know, fortunately or unfortunately, a lot of there's a handful of really big brands that own the whole market. So you really look, for example, if you go to Marriott, it's not just Marriott. They actually manage 40 different brands. So under that, if you just go to their main website, again, it's having the technology do the work for you, where you are able to be able to just go to one source and take care of that. So.
Okay, so this is Crescent Care's website. It's crescentcare.org. And I just want to explain just a little bit about Crescent Care. So we're a community health center, but the services we offer the community are very diverse. So we offer primary care, OB/GYN, peds, infectious disease, harm reduction. We have a huge prevention department that goes out in the community and tests and counsels folks. We also have a housing department that helps folks get affordable housing, sustainable housing for themselves. We have a food pantry, and so it's looking at healthcare in a very holistic way, such that we're trying to attack social determinants of healthcare to improve health outcomes for New Orleans. Anyways, so that's Crescent Care. And I would say definitely check us out, wink wink. We definitely have some entry-level positions that only require some customer service just to break into the healthcare space if anyone is interested in that. But also some other websites that I just put on the bottom here were Idealist, that's a great one. Indeed, we mentioned, Simply Hired, and Glassdoor. So those are just others that I drew up. But for the healthcare space, LinkedIn, as Tara said, we're looking at LinkedIn, we're looking at Indeed, and that's where we're getting our candidates from. Your slides next, actually.
All right, and then targeting your search a little bit. So where do I start? Again, even something as simple as targeting companies of interest. So I'll tell you a little, actually like a funny little anecdote about nothing to do with hospitality. So COVID hit, and my hours were greatly reduced. So I was still getting about half-time hours, but I needed to make up some supplemental incomes, like a lot of people. So, and I actually am a CrossFit instructor on the side. So I was like, what can I do aside from just like CrossFit that I can still like join a company? I was like, oh, Lululemon. Let me look into Lululemon. It seems like it's a very cool company. I looked into, again, did all of my research kind of like of the values and the culture, and I had never owned a piece of Lulu, to be honest, until I started working there. But they had an opening for a, person that comes and helps you at Lulu, and so all through COVID, I worked at the Canal Place Lululemon along with working at my current job. But you know what? Then I actually loved Lulu. I loved working there, and so even when I got my full-time job back, I still moonlighted there on the weekend just so I could get the discount because I loved it. But that was just me thinking, okay, what companies do I enjoy interacting with on the day-to-day, and that was something that I did, and then because I have been in customer service, it just translated very well, and I loved working there. I still love working there. Work there during the holidays. So, and then just be very specific in terms of, if you are gonna, we'll talk about making connections, targeting emails, in-person visits, and using some different filters, which we already talked about. Some of this, did you want to comment on it all?
Yeah, I would just say, I think we mentioned it earlier, but it really matters, the location, what industry are you interested in, the climate of the organization, the culture of the organization, all these things really matter. So it's kind of a bit of looking in the mirror and determining if those match your vibe, your identity, who you are, all of these things. And what you're expecting, what are your salary expectations so they're in alignment. So really understand those things about yourself, and that way you can kind of match it up with organizations that can kind of give you what you want. Because employers such as Windsor Court and Crescent Care, right, we want to be your employer of choice. We want to give you what you need, what you want, but there's only so much, right? So it's just in the way that we want the skills and ability and the educational everything that you're bringing, the value that you're bringing to the organization that you're going to work for, we want to bring value to you, right? So just making sure that what you need is in alignment with the organization is going to provide, that's really important. So where do you start? Networking is really, I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, getting out in the community. We hire a bunch of our volunteers. We have a pool of over 600 volunteers volunteers. We're almost 300 employees, and so I would say that more often than not, we're hiring folks that may volunteer for us for a little bit, because it's almost like you get to know that person a little bit. You get to know that they're going to show up when they say they're going to show up, and so it's kind of like a little testing for us. So I would say if you're interested in an organization and they have a volunteer department, tap into that. You know, maybe it's one day a week, or maybe it's a few hours a week, but then you're going to be known by them, and you showing up and doing what you say you're going to do, that matters. And then you'll be more likely to get hired into that organization. So that's just one idea, but certainly professional organizations that are tied to your interests, those are key. I would say if you have a high school alum association, get connected with them. My daughter graduated from college 2 years ago, and she joined this club. It's called the New Orleans Girls Club. And it's just for kind of 20-something young women professionals to get together and share tips with one another. So I highly recommend that one. Check them out on Instagram. But there are tons of associations that you can become a part of, and then you're going to make connections there. Okay? So I highly recommend this, and just getting involved in any way that you can in the community.
Yeah, so like further to that as well, it's definitely, if you've ever heard that, trust me, it is what you know as well. Where you can't just be somebody that knows somebody and has no qualifications. But if you're picking between two people that have equal qualifications, but the referral came from somebody that was inside your organization or somebody that that trusted referral, you're gonna trust that person's opinion over, blindly picking this other person. And I'm also a big believer of like speaking your truth. And if you want something, say it out loud and say it to as many people as possible in whatever room you're in, because you never know who's in that room that could be that connection to your next opportunity, your next anything in life that you have going for you. So yeah, you really never know. So for example, so I came here originally in 2007. I was working at a sister hotel of the Windsor Court, and when I was in Santa Barbara, and then the recession happened, and I was in a marketing position at the time. So they were cutting back all the marketing back to corporate, and I could have moved to a different hotel within that organization, or I could have chosen to move back to California. They weren't pushing me out the door. They said, find a job. So I was able to find a job that was close to where I grew up. However, I know connections that I knew of there. But then I started to do my research, and this is really important too. The GM actually happened to live in the town that I grew up in. I didn't know who he was, but automatically in my intro email to him, I made that connection, right? And then I started asking everybody I know, who do you know that works at Rosewood? Who can give me I just need a foot in the door. I'm certain once I get in the door and get that interview, I can get the job. But just even getting your foot in the door, and I did know somebody was able to do that. Again, I still had to do the legwork in terms of representing myself and my qualifications, but I may have not been able to get my resume pulled out of that pile of 200 people had I not known somebody. So again, I'm just a really big believer of, again, speaking your truth and telling as many people as possible what it is that your goal is that you're trying to achieve. So.
Yeah, no, I just want to share one other thing. So I didn't tell you how I got from Ochsner to Crescent Care, and so this is kind of an interesting story. This woman that I worked with way back in the day just remembered me, and she's also a jazzercise. She works in HR, but at another organization. But she was a jazzercise instructor, and so she was teaching jazzercise, and somebody mentioned that there was a CFO in the jazzercise class. And the CFO was with Crescent Care and said, gosh, we're looking for an HR director right now. We really need somebody to build something from the ground up. And like that night, Elise called me and said, this organization would be perfect for you. You've got to go check them out. So I'm like, I don't know what Crescent, I'm at Ochsner. Like, why do I need to, what are you talking about? So I looked them up online, and I was like, wow, okay. Their focus is on underserved in the community rather than underserved being an afterthought. wow, this speaks to me and who I am. And I go on the first interview with the CEO and the chief medical officer, and we're at a round table. And the chief medical officer, I mean, I love Oscar, it's a great organization, but the physicians there are pretty white jacket, loafers, very buttoned up, very buttoned up. And so I'm at this round table with the CEO and the chief medical officer. I look down, and the chief medical officer is wearing Toms. And I was like, oh yeah, this is my place. So I'm like, okay. So anyways, you never know. You never know who can help you, who could help you, who might think of you, who knows you, and will reach out to you. So again, get out in the community. Let your reputation speak for itself, and hopefully you'll have, in the years of your career, you'll have someone who will think of you years later and bring an opportunity to you.
How do you set yourself apart? So there are some basics here, but I will tell you this, after, recruiting and looking at resumes is not a big part of my job, but I do it. And I was doing it, a lot of it during COVID and after COVID. And the basics, you would be surprised at the basics that are overlooked. Spell check. Spell check, spell check, spell check. Everything. Again, there's computers that do these things for you. So you do not have to be a proficient spelling bee whiz. All you have to do is push the thing that says spell check and it will spell check it for you. Have somebody else proofread something. You can look at something 20 times and it will look the same, but having a fresh pair of eyes on something really helps. Write a cover letter or separate intro email. So if there is an opportunity on the application to be able to do that, just taking that little extra time, again, you don't have to overthink it, a little extra time that personalizes why specifically you're interested in that either job or that business, and what you specifically can bring to that job. Again, just taking that extra time. And then call and follow up. It shows that you are interested and shows that you have that passion for that. Jeanette already mentioned this, ensuring that your resume and your application are up to date and accurate. Again, sounds like something that you is really simple, but you would be amazed, especially people don't take the time to update it to their most recent job. So a lot of times it looks like the last job that they had was maybe in 2022. And so when you're looking at a resume as somebody that's like going over there, you're thinking, has that person not worked for 2 years, or do they not have an updated resume? I'd rather take the person that probably hadn't worked for 2 years but had some sort of family, something else happened in their life, than somebody that did not take the time to actually update what it is they're doing today, because that shows very little care, to be honest, and not accurate as well, right? Ensure your contact information is correct, and make sure your voicemail is set up and not full. I cannot tell you how many times we call somebody to set up a interview and you cannot leave a message. And yes, I get it. Voicemail is like old and outdated, and who checks their voicemail? I will move on to the next candidate if I cannot get a hold of you. That sounds so basic, but please, for the love of all things good, make sure that you have a voicemail that is either set up. People want to get in contact with you. How can you get a job if people are not able to get into contact you? So very basic. And remember where you applied and what positions you applied for. Keep a log if you have to, okay? The worst thing that you could do also, when somebody calls you and says, hey, this is Tara, I'm calling from the Windsor Court, would love to follow up with you for an interview for such and such position. What job is this? I applied to so many jobs, I can't remember So again, that's already like automatic no, right? So be very intentional, even if you are reaching out to many different companies or applying to different jobs. Keep track, and when you answer the phone, make sure that you kind of understand what's happening again, so that we know that you're engaged.
I was just going to add one thing. Please, HR people are big nerds. Big nerds. All right. So if you apply to a position online, you attach your resume, right? A lot of systems right now will, if you upload your resume, it kind of dumps your information into the application for you, kind of, sort of, and then you gotta look at it and verify that the information dumped into these different fields for you is actually accurate. So I would say, please take a minute, make sure you're following the instructions on the application. It's really critical, because HR people are looking at it, and they're looking at you to answer the questions on the application. And if it's kind of like, you know, barely filled out, you're trying to, you know, what's going on here, there's blank, you know, blanks all over the place, on to the next person. Because that's telling me that this person that applied can't follow these instructions that are on the application. So please, I can't stress it enough, like the voicemail thing, please fill out the application and just take a moment, breathe, and fill it out. And just read and fill it out appropriately, and then you won't get passed over, okay?
Yeah. Going back to that very first slide, it is work to find work, right? It is. There's no doubt about that, but you know, you'll get out what you put into it, so promise it's worth the time.
Yes, okay. So this is, I guess, we talked about getting to know yourself really well, right? So, you know, really thinking about what are your goals, short-term and long-term, and learning about yourself. What are your strengths? Really, what are some things that you love to do and you really believe you're good at, okay? And then what are the things that maybe you have some areas of opportunity, and those are the things that you're gonna put into your plan to grow in these areas, right? So really understanding yourself is important, because what you want to do is have a plan to address those areas of opportunity. And when you're looking for a job, all job postings for the most part, they're going to have minimum qualifications, and they're also going to have kind of preferred qualifications. Hone in on those minimum requirements. What is required for this job? Because I'll tell you, a lot of times we have candidates who do not have, say, an RN license, okay, or one of the minimum requirements for or qualifications for the job, and they're applying for the job only to be disappointed because they're not meeting the minimums. So I would say hone in on, if you're interested in a particular industry, company, position that you're looking at, scroll it on down to those qualifications. And if they match yours, absolutely apply for it. But a lot of times, you know, candidates that don't, or maybe even overqualified, you know, we don't need a PhD to be a receptionist, okay? And so that person might be a little bit disappointed on this compensation. So really making sure that your skills and abilities match up with the job that you're looking for, and addressing those areas of opportunity. It may take you years. That's okay. You've got a roadmap for yourself. I think that's really important. And I also think it's really important to check your online presence, please. I have been shocked at some of the things. Again, HR people are nerds, all right? We're gonna look at everything that we could possibly see online to look at, okay, we're trying to learn about the candidate, right? So we're gonna look at every possible place that we can. And so if you've got accounts on wherever, right? Make sure that, first of all, we talked about having, you know, your resume, applications, and LinkedIn profiles all match, right? They should all be the same, right? If it's the reality of your life story, it should all be the same, right? So I would definitely say use the privacy on your social media accounts, okay? And think that, keep in mind that employers might be looking at what you're posting if it's public, okay? And healthcare for the most part, right? We're a certain way because we're actually caring for other human beings, right? And the folks that come to our clinic, right, they need to have confidence in us in being able to take care of them, right? So our online presence does matter. Does matter. So I would just say check in you to make sure you're not showing too much. Okay?
And just like a professionalism tip as well, it's not gonna preclude me from calling on you or getting your qualifications, but if your email is like ilovechickenwings@gmail.com, you know, think about changing it to, you know, some iteration of your first and last name at gmail.com. Again, I'm not gonna disqualify somebody for having a crazy personal email, just as a professionalism tip. It's just something to, you know, start right now to have as you go into the future.
So these are some of the websites that you can look at to search. There's a number of them here. I'm not going to call them all out, but I'll point out the Occupational Outlook Handbook on ONET, because you can go on that website and you can basically search up. It's a listing of industry positions, so you can go on that website and you can kind of search up different positions and learn a little bit more about them. You could even just type in an area of focus, an area of study, like sociology or accounting, and it'll pull up all the different options that are available to you, just so you can kind of see, oh, okay, well, this is something, this is an area of interest, this is what I'm studying right now here. Maybe these are some of the occupations that I can go into. So, and it's funny, I did this morning, I jumped on there real quick, and I put in sociology, and one of the areas or occupations was HR. Anyways.
So you're in the right field.
But yeah, that's our way to say it.
So you're in the right field.
That's right. Yeah. So this is a study by the National Association of Colleges and Employers. And these are the top 5 attributes that employers are looking for. And it's really like, oh, okay, yeah, we are looking for these things, okay? It's a great study. But problem-solving skills, really important. Ability to work on a team. Strong work ethic, analytical skills, and communication skills. So those are kind of baseline top skills that employers are looking for right now. And so it's like, okay, are these some of the skills that you excel at, or are some of these areas of opportunity for you? Because if these are the 5 attributes that employers are looking for right now, studies from 2023, that might give you some areas of focus and study or development. So this is a resume. This is just a sample of a resume, and I mean, I see all kinds of resumes, but I would say keeping it as simple and succinct as you can is probably the best way to go. Different color texts and illustrations and photos and a lot of things on resumes now that really aren't needed. I would say keep it simple. And the sections that are typically in a resume that I like to see, you're going to have your education, whatever education that is. Maybe you have a certificate or a license. You're going to put that. Your experience, so your work experience, or maybe you don't have a lot of work experience, but maybe you can talk about experience that you had on a committee or experience that you had in school, something like that, an advisor that can speak to you as a reference. Professional organizations, so professional organizations that are tied to what you do, if you're a member of those, that's great. And also I like to see, just because I'm who I am, I like to see candidates that add maybe some civic organizations they're a part of, you know, what they do, a little bit of what they do, you know, outside of the professional sphere is something that's close to their heart. I like to see if they put that. Not necessary, but it's cool for me to see. But yeah, those are kind of the sections that are in a resume, and I think they're pretty easy, simple, yeah, common, seen it before.
And that's like a precursor to the next series, which will go into more detail on resume writing. So, yep. Do y'all have any questions for either of us that we can answer for you that you started to spark?
Give us your hardest,
Yeah.
your most difficult questions, please. Yes.
There's been some writings over the last week and a half about HR's thoughts on Gen Z and them being let go at such an alarming rate. Yeah,
Wow.
this was written up in Forbes. And so, yeah, sorry.
No.
But I wanted to ask,
go, or is it them choosing to?
No.
so it is that they're not coming coming in with strong work ethic, they're not coming in with communication skills, and they're actually wanting a lot more flexibility in terms of coming in, leaving, working, flexible like remote, and also they're taking more time away than their predecessors. What advice do you have, especially since a lot of these are Gen Z, for them to ensure that they are, they're top of mind? Not only that, but also when they get in, like, what do they need to do to establish themselves within 30 or 60 days to show that the investment in them is worth it?
I would say, I have an answer, I'm sure you have an
Yeah, go
answer.
ahead.
It's just like, hey, you know what? The part in the presentation we talked about making sure that what you need is matching what the employer needs, right? So talking about where the job is and reliable transportation. What are the hours? Can you really, really do it? When you're in an interview saying yes to everything, but like really be true to yourself, really be honest with yourself. Can you do this, right? And then you just need to show up. Show up. Really show up. But it's showing up when you committed to showing up, right? It's all part of the interview process, right? Your hours, the days you're going to be there, all of these, all the criteria of the job, right? It's all laid out for you. So if it's something that you agree to, then you got to do it. So it's kind of showing up when you say you're going to show up. I would say there may be a little bit of, at least in my workplace, there's a little bit of truth to the, leaning into the remote a little bit more than any other generation in the workforce. That's okay. As best we can, we try to accommodate as best we can. But it's really interesting. It's like right at the beginning of COVID, right away, we got everybody out of the clinics. And the only thing we were doing in the garage, we were doing COVID testing really quickly before the city did. In our parking lot, we had doctors and nurses doing COVID testing. And we had everybody else home working from remote. And we had so many employees complaining about feeling isolated and everything else. They really didn't want to work remotely, and it's really strange. So when the COVID, epidemic kind of lessened, and we could start bringing people back into the office, you know what happened? They didn't want to come back. It was like, what? Okay. Anyways, I'm going on and on and on, but go ahead. Give me your answer, please.
I would say the same thing. I will say that I think there's a lot more talk about how Gen Z job hops, but not in a bad way. I think to Erin's point, we're finding that a lot of Gen Z people, in order to kind of know themselves and figure it out, are kind of testing the waters at these different employers. Doesn't mean that they are bad employees. They're just trying to figure out, kind of, it's like a discovery phase for them. And so at least from my perspective, we lean into those resumes with a little bit more grace. And we also know that, again, there's people that have different personal situations that they're dealing with, that like gaps in resumes aren't as big of a deal depending on what the situation is. But again, you just need to be able to eloquently speak to that if you do get called back for an interview, and confidently kind of speak to the lessons that you have learned that has brought you to that place now. And then doing all of that research, like Jeanette says, hopefully aligns you a little bit better with before you even walk in the door of what you're looking for, before you walk in and you're like, whoa, I did not realize this company was like that. Which is why it's really important when you're interviewing that it's not just about them interviewing you, that you're really interviewing that company and then that person to understand if that's going to be a good cultural fit for you. And then, like she said as well, again, just showing up. You'd be amazed at just showing up, showing on time, a difference that makes, and being present and putting your full effort into something every time you show up. So, any other questions? Thanks, ladies. Do you have anything before you left? Thank you for coming.
Real quick, can you guys elaborate on benefits? Like, I had a student who's maybe 27, but he's been working in the hospitality sector for a while, and he's doing a 2-year degree, but I was trying to talk to him about how, hey, this 2-year degree ties you up. Like, you might be able to do a shorter certification. He was interested in the physical therapy assistant, and I was like, there are shorter certifications that would get you in the workforce faster, and then you could work with the certificate. You know, get in, like have a, you know, job with benefits, this and that. And then maybe you could keep on working towards the nursing, but you already have that job with benefits and you're getting healthcare sector experience. So, you know, I don't know how familiar all of you guys are with benefits and like what, you know, maybe is most important to look at, because he hadn't thought about it.
So here's the thing, so I'll just give you generally speaking, at Crescent Care, this is what we offer, and I'll offer the same benefits, really. Company sponsored, you know, medical, dental, vision, short-term disability, long-term disability, 401k. We now have this year pet insurance, woo! But yeah, those are.
Paid vacation? Just say
Oh,
days.
yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The paid time off is 11 holidays, 5 sick days in your first year, and 15 vacation in your first year. So that's all rolled up. And that's, you know, so there's this pay, right, the pay rate you're gonna get paid for, you know, being there, or a salary you're gonna earn for being there. But there's all this other investment that the company makes in you in addition to the hourly rate of the salary. It's all the benefits, which are really expensive. It's really expensive.
You know, professional development opportunities, sometimes companies will pay for ongoing education, like you finish your 2-year degree here, but you really want to get a 4-year degree. So maybe, you know, you're looking at a couple of different companies and you get an offer, maybe you want to seriously look a little bit harder at the one, you know, that would pay for ongoing education.
I'll tell you one success story real quick before you guys get. So we had this is a great guy, and he actually opened up his own clinic. But anyways, he started out at Crescent Care right out of Tulane social work program. So he was a green social worker, right? Started out. So he did, he was a social worker for a good bit. And then he said, I want to be a nurse. I think I want to be a nurse. So we supported him while he, went back to school to get to be an RN. Then he came back a couple of years later and said, hey, I want to be an MP, a nurse practitioner. We said, okay, we support you. And so he went back to school and got his education to be an MP. But yeah, so we support folks in going back to school, evolving. You know, you may want to be this now, but hey, you might want to get into another area in the organization later. So, and he's a fine example of that. Social worker, RN, and nurse practitioner all in one career. It's amazing.